I think as humans, we're not very good at assessing risk. We continually get ourselves into trouble.
We cannot simply go and impose our truth and our culture and our values on others and criticize the values of others as bias.
Now we're letting go of humans in the transaction loop.
This is After the Magic, a limited series podcast in which Gam Diaz and Sergio Maldonado will discuss the impact of agentic AI on various industries. Gam and Sergio have grown up professionally in a world in which Forrester Research, or Gartner, threw its famous Magic Quadrant, determined, as it by divine designation, the most impactful or advanced technology vendors. It occurred to them that the explosion of startups and competing technologies called for a very different approach to telling the signal from the noise. And it had to begin with two basic principles: unsponsored realism and extreme curiosity. At the same time, every analysis was to be mapped to human values and individual agency. And it is with that mission that they are now humbly bidding for a few minutes of your time. Please bear with us as we polish this over time, but we do hope that you find it valuable and, in a way, unique.
Okay, this is a totally improvised conversation that Gam and I had about a month ago. We just did not find the time to put it together in an episode until now. And most of it remains current, but I do need to add a couple of updates. One of them, I had not yet back then had a chance to look at MyTerms, and that's the new global standard that you can find on myterms.info. And Gam will refer to that. Shortly after, I came across Ian Henderson's article on the interplay of MyTerms, again the new standard, with AI agents. And you'll find that in the show notes. And we absolutely should dedicate an episode to the topic. And two, we talk about Meta's AI assistant being bundled with Instagram and WhatsApp. And that very combination was the target of a new European Commission antitrust investigation opened last week. With that, I'll let you just go with the flow because we touched on too many topics for me to summarize now. Thank you. How are you, Gam?
I'm excited everything's going so fast. I'm catching up on my learning, to be honest, at the moment, because it's all changed again.
Yeah, we all are. You know, sometimes I'm thinking, what are we doing? We should just sit and wait. Because every 6 months is something new. Everything we've done becomes a commodity, either as knowledge that spreads fast, or as technologies that we're trying to polish up. We're talking about all of these safeguards, and then reasoning models improve. And they start checking against, for example, in the legal world, against real court cases. So they do not hallucinate that much anymore because the models are now, they take more time, but they can go and find the specific items that actually exist, right? In the medical area, they can now go and check against real symptoms and so on. So sometimes I feel we are adding all of these layers and we're criticizing the tools. And you and I had this conversation about hallucinations, saying, why would you criticize something that is part of its nature, right? When over time, it is becoming better. And sometimes it feels like we should just sit and observe and let it evolve instead of rushing into this thing. But I wanted to tell you one thing. You know how there's all of these transcript meeting assistants,
Yes.
right? So you join a call or you invite someone to a call and all of a sudden you've got an AI and note taking, but it's not just note taking,
And they always join
right?
before the person.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
on time.
Hey, this AI wants to join the call. And I've had a few calls on the Master Privacy podcast where I had to ask my guest, could you please turn it off? I'm not going to let it in because I have not had time to audit the system. I don't know what's happening. This is going to keep video. It's going to build all sorts of things. So, and then we'll be jumping on a call talking about AI safeguards and the law and so on. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is a bit like, let's say that if I put myself in the shoes of all of these people that sometimes I criticize in Silicon Valley, so they could very easily say, listen, if you've got a problem with the nature of the things that I produce, just forbid them. Do not use them. But it's like sometimes, and I am criticizing myself here, we are saying, I want to enjoy the benefits of that aspirin. Give me the aspirin. But I'm not willing to accept that aspirin by nature will hurt my stomach, you know? Of course, there's a solution for it, which is I can eat a banana before I have it. But that's on my end. That's an inference level sort of solution, right? It's happening later. So why do we want to have our cake and eat it too, right? Maybe if we are consistent with our approach to safeguards and the risks that we appreciate, we should just refrain from using so many tools and wait. Or we should embrace them the way they are and perhaps accept responsibility on our end and not criticize the makers of the tools that now we are rushing to embrace. That's my rambling for this morning.
I think as humans, we're not very good at assessing risk. We continually get ourselves into trouble because the risk is too far down the line for us to perceive. We are very instant in our need for gratification, but our need or our ability to assess future risk is generally very poor. And maybe agents are better at assessing future risk than we would be as sole humans. I was thinking about AGI, this artificial general intelligence, and that implies that it has sensitivity, empathy, a lot of the things that we as humans are very good at because, as I've said before, as humans, we will die. AI has no fear of
Yeah.
dying. We will make mistakes and hurt people. AI has no remorse or regret, and we do, and that makes things human. But one of the things that you said is we, instead of thinking about AGI, like I'm going to reframe the idea of superintelligence. And superintelligence is really very much a co-pilot. And I quite like the co-pilot because it always keeps the human engaged. And so if in this situation I need to assess risk, well, the AI should be running in parallel,
Yeah.
like a conscience, like saying, hey, do you want to do that because it's risky? Or in terms of showing up to a meeting on time or doing the things that, if you talked about when you're researching a legal document, the AI is bringing cases in real time. And so, if you had an army of people with access to instant information as you're writing something, that army will just keep coming in and telling you. That's what this super intelligence is, because AI is really good at going out and finding stuff very, very fast in real time and bringing it back to me and assembling it in a way that I can use. But so maybe everybody needs super intelligence all the time. But isn't that what?
Yeah, I was about to tell you. I think the meta speech is working on you.
Oh no, yeah. Well, yes, but if I and I don't know why I care so much about my data leaking out onto other people's servers and information systems. But, if I could take advantage of this cloud, that I would have that super intelligence. Anytime I'm going to buy a product, I can find the best vendor for it. I'm in a store
Yep.
looking for this, and through my glasses, I'm being shown other versions of the same thing. Here's an unbranded retailer that is selling exactly that thing that you're looking at right now. Its reviews are as good. It is as reliable. I've just read all the terms and conditions. It's as good. So it is kind of perfect information
Yeah.
in a where everything's a
Yeah.
market.
I think I mean, the meta vision, of course, fits very nicely with the risks to their business model and the opportunities that they have. And I totally see that the idea of co-piloting in the legal world, co-counsel, as they call it in the West law, and so if you come from the meta world, as Zuckerberg would come from the whole idea of the metaverse, you've got the world of virtual reality, where everything would be in the parallel world. Here would be everything would be AI, and you've got the world of augmented reality. So augmented intelligence would be your companion, and here you've got the meta AI vision, where they're combining the conversation that you and I have, where I can get some help sending you a message with the autocomplete in the meta AI in WhatsApp or Instagram messaging, with me talking to the meta AI directly and asking for help or finding a product. And because now you've got the merchants on the other end, and they want to sell those ads or that inventory in the chats, because everything is a chatbot. So the same interface that you used to talk to me, and I used to talk to you, you used to talk to the merchant for customer support, and now they can take it further. So they have a free, as a merchant, as a seller, as a retailer, you've got a free customer support service developed by Meta, right? Powered by Llama, whatever, on WhatsApp. And now you extend that to a demand generation channel. And so it fits so beautifully in the meta world, so that you move from what we have today, where I'm gathering all of this data to know what you may need and who you resemble to build lookalike audiences and so on, and then propose something that you might want, to the world where that's based on, as you say, on the glasses, on the chats, on the customer support, and everything is integrated through this augmented intelligence, this super intelligence, as you're saying. My concern with this thing is always the same, and we come from there. So here, I'll repeat myself: is that that vision is fully centralized within Meta. The Meta superintelligence is all about the Meta AI, everything happening in their app. Of course, they're in a fight with, for example, the device-centric intelligence, like an Apple-centric intelligence, where everything would happen in Apple. So if it's meta-centric, it's happening at another layer. But of course, I would still prefer for this to happen in my personal sphere, so that I can transport it across different super intelligence or super, or co-pilots.
So I think I mean, okay. So in terms of as a data person, as a process person, as a somebody who wants to remove friction as a technologist, Meta's proposition is very elegant, and it has been for a long time. The only problem is, as our friend Tony Fish says, who is supervising your thinking? Meta's AI agent will have a bias to making Meta more money than it has a bias to helping me find the perfect product, which is fine. And whether it's a bank's personal AI investment manager is going to be recommending the bank's products versus a third party's products. Any AI that is helping me make decisions is going to carry a bias. So how do we guarantee that the agent is working on my behalf? And I don't know if you've seen all the stuff coming out about MyTerms.
On the
Um,
project VRM, I've seen a few things here and there, but I have not been paying too much attention.
um, yeah, I'll share the link a little bit.
Thank you.
But it's whenever you so the idea of so the payment standards AP2, it sets a good precedent because what it's doing is it's creating a verified mandate I guess it's cryptographically signed. So when I'm looking for a thing, let's just say I'm looking to buy concert tickets and I give it a mandate. I say, for this period, at this price, as soon as at this maximum price, as soon as the tickets are released, get me this type of seat. So it's very tightly defined. And so the idea of formalizing um, things, I think maybe this is where the evolution of, now we're letting go of humans in the transaction loop. We're relying on agents to do it. So we've got to be much more formal about what those agents are and are not able to do. And so I feel like MyTerms is a is a version of the mandate, but it's an open standard where I can issue my intent. And so, yeah, Facebook, I'll happily shop in your ecosystem as long as you comply with my terms. So maybe all of this surfaces as a series of algorithms, um, negotiation algorithms, because at the end of the day, for agentic commerce to work, the agents are going to make increasingly complex decisions. Um, I'm looking for concert tickets. I want these dates. What's the availability? I want them at this
Yeah.
price. Now, what have you got? Um, would I sacrifice this date for a different for a different seat? How many dimensions am I messing around with here?
Yes.
And then, so my agent is the customer's agent, and your agent is the booking service agent. And so we're juggling, and you in the background are trying to optimize seats for one day, and you know that this day is actually hard to sell seats. And so you might accept my offer on a lower price, but I'm also juggling my calendar in the background because I've got to get my flights right. And I know the flights are going to be expensive. So this is the thing that drives humans mad when they're trying to book anything. It's the dependencies. But if 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 I've got an agent at the front end that's dealing with your agents, and we've got agents in the back end, that ability to negotiate um, and to arrive at win-win situations, I think there's a big opportunity in negotiation
Yeah.
algorithms. I think we talked about this before because we talked about chess.
We are worse. We're worse at everything. And that's something that I'm thinking now. So we're worse at negotiating. Negotiation, when you start looking for, you call someone, and instead of using an online system to book a seat at that concert or game, you start negotiating, and you've got all of these hidden biases and all of these judgments that are happening, emotional concerns that have nothing to do with the value you're going to get from the seat, just because the person at the other end of the line is nicer or they're more persuasive, right? So we are so inefficient. If what you want is the best possible seat at the best possible price, and what the other party wants is to sell the seats at the highest possible price, bearing in mind how much demand is queuing up behind that person you're dealing with, right? So that you're not sacrificing future revenue. Of course, a system that can deal with this thing at scale is going to be much more efficient. I believe for everyone. I don't think it's going to be good just for one of the parties. I really think it's good for both because you leave behind all of these elements that pollute the decision that are really not efficient.
So, I mean, the airlines have got very good at that, like optimizing, I guess, seat fill or bookings or whatever it is. But I was thinking about what you just said is when we think about negotiation, like bad negotiation is adversarial, and what good negotiation is everybody feels like they've won.
Yeah.
is there, does agentic commerce, should agentic commerce come with the premise that all negotiations should be win-win as much as possible? And then we're kind of satisfying everybody's needs. And and this is where agentic agentic multi-agent systems stand a better chance because they can bring more variables into a negotiation
Yes.
that simple things can't.
Yeah, I agree. It's like biases. We say, okay, a system is biased. It's something. It's a very basic approach to understanding how we judge. So some people would say, "Oh, you judging AIs by a lower standard, and you will never let someone do what they do and get away with the things they do." And that's an approach, right? And we see that all the time. You will never let a system do what you are letting an OpenAI and Anthropic do. It's true from many points of view. Another angle would be the opposite. You will not let a person do what they are doing if you knew the biases they are subject to. And if you were able to have multiple persons with their biases, as you can have multiple agents work together in a single problem, you are slowly compensating for the bias because they have separate, different, sometimes opposed biases. So you can have different agents, you can have, just as you can have different people working on a problem, and normally that will, you know, decrease the risk of hanging, of being pegged to someone's background and traumas and so on, right?
I was trying to work out how that would happen, and I was trying to work through an example of that.
Yeah, I was listening to someone talking about judges and the virtual judge and the AI judge, since everyone is coming up with AI lawyers. And if you have a lot of AI lawyers, the scale of the claims that you can have is going to overflow the system. So you better have an AI judge somewhere as you start scaling, litigation, for example. How do you come up with an AI judge? Judges today, human judges, are very biased. And you can see that in court cases now that I've been looking, especially in this world of, for example, I've been looking at SIPA court cases, so privacy litigation in California. And it really, sometimes it's down to the judge, to how the judge,
But
yeah,
that's like AI. AI is biased by definition. If we had no bias, AI would never be able to make a prediction.
yeah,
And so if you had a completely impartial judge,
yes,
then everything is okay.
yeah, exactly, yeah, good. Yeah, but that's it. So, and the doctor as well.
But as long as the judge carries the prevailing bias of the society in which the law is being enacted, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if the judge has a different bias, so by definition, the judge's bias has to be the same of the people that the judge is judging.
You just touched on the perfect point, because when large law firms are aiming for very large settlements, first they will flood the system with press releases and so on. So society now is worried. I don't think an AI judge will fall for it. I think an AI judge can look at what's happening in society, but perhaps not being subject to short-term influence and to certain emotional arguments. Instead, it can look at, the broader impact of that decision, the impact that it will have, how other courts are looking at it. The human judge is so busy. She cannot even look at the decisions that were very similar happening in the same court, a few months earlier, or other courts, very, very similar court cases, because they have no bandwidth. AI does have the bandwidth, so they can be consistent. We can have a better justice system if there is, again, if we apply some basic AI or generative AI to processing all this. So on that regard, I am very positive. And I think for all the talk that we do, and today, I mean, our episode today is pretty much like the anti-safeguards episode. I could say. Sorry.
The judge, um, you okay, you're being judged by a jury of your peers sometimes, right? And so the peers represent the society you're in, the crime is being committed in. Um, did did judges, where did judges begin? Every tribe must have a judge of sorts, whether it was the shaman. And so this is where, you know, they, the shaman sort of, he or she, I think they were probably he's more than she's, but they channeled the prevailing moral code of the society that they lived in. They said it was a higher power, but effectively, they're channeling the moral, the moral average. And so the judgment is almost on which side of the moral average does this case fall?
Yeah.
And and so that's the kind of thing. I'm just wondering, it's like as we take humans out of things and we appoint AI judges, whether it's to assess a legal case or to determine the quality of a product, it's like any trivial task, we are bringing judgment into the mix. And historically, judgment has been a very human function because it is swayed by reputation, it's swayed by guilt. Am I doing the right thing? The empathy, am I, put myself in this person's shoes? Did I really intend to do it? Was it an accident? So there's all sorts of things that we now need to encode, things that we have taken for granted before because they were fundamental human functions. And well, I mean, the moment we start to try and encode a decision system, it puts a mirror up in front of us. AI has always been a very good mirror and an amplifier. If there's bias in a system, AI will amplify that bias. So yeah, there's a moral exercise. I didn't really want to get into the morals of things 'cause it's not very practical.
But it's very good that you raise the morals of things, and we've had this talk as well. So if the moral average is tied to the given to society's values, that's never universal. But AI is becoming universal. At some point, it was Rousseau, you know, Kant, saying there's such a thing as natural law. This is good and this is bad. You will not kill. It's ingrained in our system. Every human knows that killing is bad. It's easy to say with certain things, right? Stealing. But nothing is as black and white. And that's something that over the years evolved into the other extreme, right? So positivism, right? And so much more skeptical views of good and evil, where it would say, well, if whoever has the power says it's wrong, it is wrong, because you'll be punished if you do not follow what they say. But as you're saying, if you want to keep, or as I'm interpreting, if you want to keep peace in your little village, the shaman or whoever rules over that society is not trying to abide by some universal justice, but instead by whatever will maintain the peace, because it abides by the moral standard, by that moral average that you're referring to. You take that into the AI system, and what keeps some people at peace makes others very angry. And we could say that this is a bias or not, but I keep thinking that bias is very cultural. And as long as AI is global, we cannot simply go and impose our truth and our culture and our values on others and criticize the values of others as bias. And that would be a reason or a cause again, or an argument against bias checking, you see. basically saying that as you get more and more data and a unified vision of the world, which is compensated, right, which is sort of balanced because there's more, basically, that the tool that has not been, where we have not intervened and has not been polished, it's actually better and more fair to the entire population using it simply because there's more in it. What do you think?
It's a really complicated set of thoughts.
Yeah, I'm basically saying
Um,
if we wait, back to my original thought, if we wait, are things going to solve themselves or this is just too optimistic?
no, I think it's too optimistic. I don't think. I think there are certain organizations and people in power that are swinging the system to their favor. Um, it worries me that the evolution of our society has got to the point where, well, there's going to be no jobs, so we're going to need universal basic
Yeah.
income. It's is that going to what is that going to create?
I mean, who controls
And
the
I,
tools? That's also true. If I mean, this is a very
yeah,
good point. If the future that we're waiting for is determined by OpenAI, I have no trust in that future, if you ask me. If the future is determined by our common evolution and everyone coming up with a common set of, again, large language models which we all control that can be deployed, even developed new models by different people, not centralized, right? If we do not depend on the future ability of OpenAI to make money or Meta to keep making money, I think I'm quite positive.
yeah. I mean, do you do you feel you would be okay being judged by an AI judge?
I think I would. So I think under certain circumstances, if I can see how that model has been trained and they let me understand, right? Not even the training data going into it, but as we have it today. So basically the categories of data sets going in there and a basic understanding.
But surely an AI judge is going to perform more fairly on average, but everybody is not an average person.
Yeah.
Nobody's average. So I don't want a guarantee that they're going to perform well on average. I want to guarantee that they're going to perform well on me. And I think I stand a better chance with a personal
Yeah.
judge, with a human
Yeah.
judge. And so if that thinking goes along, then, you know,
It's the next stage in our evolution, right? Once we benefited from being stronger, we didn't need anyone in the middle. We didn't need a system, a state. Whoever was stronger would just simply hit someone else and take their food. Over time, we had a system in the middle. We had a yeah, we have a state, and then we've got the judiciary, and it's got to the point where it benefits those, especially in the common law world, who can explain themselves better, who can have the money to have a proxy that explains, whatever they have to, that makes their case on their behalf better. So the status quo favors those that can play with that human perception. It is so biased, it is so unfair to people with no means or people who cannot communicate well. It's just terrible. There's a million examples, especially, of course, in the criminal law world. So if you take that into a world in which you look at the cold facts, which are never that clear, but at the risk presented by those facts, and a much more neutral, so to speak, unbiased, less human, colder approach to understanding who's guilty, it is going to be fair to more people. But those that could take advantage of it today are going to miss out.
yeah. Yeah. Um, there's one thing that I wanted to get to because it came up in another conversation. So I don't know if it's in line with this or it's a tangent, if it belongs in this podcast or whatever, but um there are a small number of people who have a huge conviction and have put money and time and love behind products that consumers or citizens will want and have control over their own data. And but if you look at past performance, it hasn't happened, and the technology may be getting closer and closer to it, but I'm wondering if it'll never happen. As much as I want it to happen, I'm wondering if it is too much of a burden. It's not necessary for people to function. Meta, as we said the other week, Meta is has billions of customers. They have the full ecosystem. The convenience of Meta AI as my super intelligence to help me as a personal agent is gigantic. Do I want it any different?
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm wondering if there's a whole industry that is trying to build personal data vaults, personal data stores that is never going to see the light of day because it's just not going to happen, no matter how much we want it to
Yeah.
happen.
Look, sometimes I think that we do things in this space because we want to do good, right? Everyone has a tendency, we have a natural urge to make the world a better place. Everyone wants to feel that. I believe internally everybody has that need. And just like every now and then, we all feel the need to go and help someone or some place or whatever. It makes us feel that we're good. And just as it happens with AI ethics, sometimes I think about this. I think maybe I should be more skeptical of the whole discipline, because raising the flag of ethics is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it's an easy thing as well. You know, it's the easy thing. No one is going to raise the flag of evil. Keep AI evil. you know the thing is, no, we should be, everything should be human powered. And I am the first to say, listen, I want agency, I want, of course, because I am the same, I'm human, right? And so I also want to make the world a better place. And so when I look at empowerment and empowerment tech, and as you know, I mean, you and I, we've put, of course, you and I have put a lot of time and effort into this thing. And and so far we found that we stumble upon the realities of convenience, how society perceives the day-to-day, life, the routine. And we've tried many angles, and we've seen some people that cannot get in through the consumer angle. So consumers really do not care, let's say, about their privacy or their data, whatever, however you want to look at it. So then we look at another prism and say, well, it doesn't matter because ad tech, for example, is so full of fraud. We've had this angle as well, that we're going to make it more efficient by empowering people to share real, actual, valuable first-party data or zero-party data. And then we're going to expose that to advertisers that want to have something that is better because they know everything is corrupt and fake and there's a lot of fraud. And that hasn't worked either. And we looked at a third angle, which is let's go to the publishers that are being destroyed by Metas of the world, by Meta primarily, and or Google and Meta, and let's help them build something better that has much more valuable information, and in the process we're going to save society because we save journalism, which is good for democracy. We've tried all angles, right? Sometimes all three at once, and they haven't worked. And so I don't think anything can work while we look at it from our very limited perspective, which sometimes could be criticized as too intellectual. And not to say that we're intellectuals, but basically that we maybe read too much about the same thing. We're in our bubble. We love this bubble. We want people to have power. But what does it say about our own individualist approach? There's a whole background to this thing where empowerment and individual agency are taken for granted as really good values. And in some societies, I realize that agency runs counter to the common progress. And individuals having so much agency, in this case over your preferences, your needs, your data, as we've tried to do so many times, would be the opposite of you sacrificing your selfish perspective of the world in favor of a commonality where you accept that you're just one more lookalike. You are part of an audience and you are nothing. We are nothing as individuals. And maybe that's where the world is going, right? Maybe this is a more, I don't know if it's a Chinese approach from a political point of view, but where instead of everything we've been doing, from intent casting to MyTerms, everything we've been discussing, right? Empowerment tech, which I really believe in, it really drives me. Maybe we're doing it because we've got these values that we blindly follow, and perhaps they're not as good as we think for the common progress. And there's an entirely different perspective where maybe even Meta, as much as I dislike the company and its vision and how everything that sort of that it's grounded on is more aligned with, which is that individuals should not do that, should not try to be so different and unique, but instead think of the common, of the commonality, where we are just part of this flow. And I'm sorry, I'm totally rambling. Just a wild thought. That's the whole point, right?
You took me back to, so for a period I lived at the top of a mountain in Bonnie Doon, California, just outside Santa Cruz. Okay. And I lived on a piece of land, and the guy had built the house. It was a log house, and he built the house with wood that he chopped down from the property. My spare room was a yurt. Um, we had a well. We grew vegetables.
Amazing.
We had dogs, and pretty much I didn't really have any plastic in the fridge. Like, food products came from the farmer's market or the garden or the butchers. They were wrapped in paper. There was very little plastic in my life. Now in Madrid, I look and, the fridge is full of things that are wrapped two, three times. Like, the individual thing is wrapped in a sitting on something, and then there's a cardboard sleeve over the top of it. It's like three layers of wrapping and the bag that it came in on the
I mean, tell
delivery.
me, I'm in the US, it's murder. Yes,
Yeah, I mean, when they wrap an individual orange
yes.
in plastic wrap, it's like, for me to imagine that everybody has their own data and has control and they live a privacy first life is almost like that vision of, yeah, there's no plastic. But, we've built our society and our economy around plastic. We use it to transport goods. Even the cardboard milk carton has a plastic liner in it, which is apparently some sort of endocrine disruptor in its own right. But, we where we live is predicated on plastic. And so where we have come to digitally is predicated on our data being taken and tracked and used. And is that so fundamental to how we live our lives that all of the privacy preserving tools are almost like, oh yeah, you can have this in a cardboard box rather than triple wrapped plastic. But it'll be the minority of people that can afford that.
Yeah, yeah, it becomes an elitist approach to it because no one sees the consequences. Look, I suffer. I mean, you touched the raw nerve. I suffer with plastics and recycling. Imagine again, this is the US, and yeah, and some places, of course, in California, in New York, you see better recycling. In most of the country, it is a nightmare, and you can see that people just don't care.
I think the best recycling comes from people who have nothing
Of course.
because they have to do. I've heard that your biggest dose of endocrine disruptors is when you go to a coffee shop and come out with a paper cup, because the paper cup has plastic lining that you pour hot liquid into, and the hot
Yeah.
liquid disrupts all those endocrine disruptors. And, and so the most basic fundamental privileges of our society rely on plastic, and the most basic fundamental privileges of our life online, where we are leaving a trail of data behind. And that's the price of free run on the internet. And a private internet would be quite, a walled garden, I don't know, like a gated community internet would be a very expensive thing to live in.
Yes, exactly. That'd be sort of the community garden with the farmers market, and you only have a few people in there. Um, yeah, I mean that's the thing. The thing is, it's such a good analogy. It's all about convenience, and again, imagine the amount of people with their engines on watching a football game from the parking lot just so that they can keep either the air conditioning or the heater on. I mean, when you look at that, that's a very good example. And this time, we're not even looking at their own benefit or our own benefit or risks to our privacy, to our future. We're looking at the common values, at the environment.
Yeah. How do you I mean, this is a good, if we were thoughtful about the use of AI, we would say, okay, well, the first job for AI is to reduce our consumption, is to fix the climate because it can microtask like we can't. It'll help us make better decisions for the environment. But, it's not going to
Well, in the
happen.
short term, the first thing we need to do is just burn more fossil fuels because we need all the energy. That's the first thing that AI is going to bring, as you saw. Now, the first priority in the US is to provide the energy. Is the one thing that is missing. And we all agree that solar can be huge, but nobody's ready yet to produce the amount of energy that we can have. Nuclear is falling behind, and there's all of these, dilemmas. So people are going big on fossil fuels again so that we can feed the AI monsters. So before AI fixes the environment, it is going to destroy it.
Yes, but maybe we should be using less AI or using it in better quality. I've deployed this, $40 billion large language model that has ingested the whole earth to write me 3 lines of email.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Sergio, we've asked a lot of deep questions, and as usual, neither of us have an answer.
Very good. Exactly. Cam, thanks again.
After the Magic is produced by Gam Diaz and Sergio Maldonado. AI voiceovers are generated with 11 Labs. This show accepts no sponsors, but you are welcome to reach out to our hosts if you believe you have a mission worth their time. Find them at afterthemagic.com.